Hey there! In this video, we are going to tell you a few stories about the new World War II finds that have been discovered in Russia quite recently. Let's cut right to the chase. The German soldiers. Many times we have told you about the incredible finds in the city of Kaliningrad and its surroundings. All sorts of things are still being found there. Weapons, ammunition, treasures, jewelry, ancient artifacts and even caches of dishes from the 19th and 20th centuries. So much has been abandoned, lost or hidden, that the finds will delight fortunate searchers for hundreds of years to come. In this story, we will tell you about a find that was discovered last fall on the battlefields of the World War II. During the retreat at the end of the war, Germany lost hundreds of thousands of people killed and wounded, but continued to offer stubborn resistance to the Red Army, hoping for a miracle. But no miracle happened. Hitler's promised offensive and a new miracle weapon didn't appear. Thousands and thousands of German soldiers remained lying in the forests, fields and swamps across Europe. Last September, a group of searchers managed to find the place of death of 7 soldiers. Probably after the battle, the bodies of those killed were simply dumped into a crater and covered with earth without even looking at them. They had many personal items, words and even weapons. Only 3 dog tags were found among the remains, one of which had no inscriptions. Therefore, only 2 of the dead can be identified, and the rest will forever remain unknown. A black digger. Another black digger was detained by police officers in the city of Volgograd. For several decades, the man was engaged in excavations at the sites of battles in the Volgograd region. He restored all the weapons found to a combat condition. Police officers suspect him of illegal sale of weapons. At the time of detention, 4 German carbines, 1 Mosin rifle and 1 small-caliber carbine were found. All the weapons were in good condition. Also, there were several samples of weapons which had not yet been fully restored, as well as a huge quantity of cartridges of various calibers. A dead soldier. Another interesting find was discovered this winter in the Stalingrad region. 2 guys found a dead German soldier at the site of the 6th German Army of Paulus' defeat. The Wehrmacht soldier had a personal badge with his data and a wedding ring. Interestingly, the ring had a wedding date engraved on it, the 21st of November 1942. The German soldier got married literally a month before the army, led by Field Marshal Paulus, perished. It's impossible to establish exactly when he died. This case sparked a heated debate on the World War II forum about how the deceased could have gotten married at that time. Some believe he got married while on vacation and then arrived to Stalingrad at the very end of the battle. Other searchers say that in the German army there were long-distance marriages. Lovers could legalize their relations even if a bride was at home and a soldier was at the front. Let us know what you think in the comments below. The defense of a WWII quarry is the story of the underground resistance of Soviet soldiers during the World War II. When Kerch was occupied by the Wehrmacht and the Soviet troops retreated to the Crimean front in May 1942, the WWII quarry became a place of resistance for the remaining military units. Encircled by the enemy, without light, fresh air and heat, in conditions of an acute storage of food, water and medicine, the underground garrison held its defenses for 170 days and made counterattacks. A WWII fortress has become a symbol of courage and fortitude. For many centuries, shell rock has been mined in the quarries using open pit and underground mining, as a result of which underground catacombs with many entrances were formed. During the operation targeting Crimea in May 1942, the Germans launched a counteroffensive, as a result of which they conquered the Crimean Peninsula, except for Sevastopol, which continued the fearless defense. A group covering the retreat of the Red Army under the command of Colonel Yagunov took up defensive position in the central Adjimushkai quarry. More than 10,000 people. Local residents, more than 2,000 people, including children, joined them. Most of them returned to the village a few days later due to lack of food and water. Jews, families of party commanders and partisans remained. No way Nazis would have kept them alive. The quarries have been divided into small and central parts, disconnected from each other, located at a distance of about 300 meters one from another. There were slightly more than 2,000 people in the small quarry. In total, the approximate number of soldiers in the quarries was over 20,000 people. The first sudden gas attack was carried out on May 25, 1942, by a special SS command from Berlin. Gas and smoke bombs were used, which were thrown into the entrances for several hours alone. With a lack of fresh air, the gas led to fatal suffocation. After the gas attack, the number of people in the quarries reduced significantly. No more than 3,000 of them left in the central quarries. The survivors who ran to the surface to escape the gas were taken prisoners. Those who died outside were buried by the Germans in a mass grave. Their dead in the quarry were buried underground. According to the diary of Alexander Trofimenko, there were 824 dead on the territory of one battalion. Lack of water was the first thing faced by the inhabitants of the quarries. The place where a well was located, a few meters from the entrance, was shot through by the Germans. There were no wells inside the quarries. Water could only be collected from the ceiling and walls, drop by drop. In the central quarry, 2 wells were dug. They also tried to dig wells in the small quarry, but didn't find water. The Nazis started planting explosives from the very first day. First of all large entrances were blown up. Then they hollowed the pits in which several aerial bombs were placed at once. The explosions destroyed the quarries severely. The ceiling was collapsing from the explosions. People ended up under the rubble of the rock. Some were still alive, but there was no way to pull them out. Subsequently, the soldiers learned to determine a place of future explosion by the sound of digging and moved to another place. The wounded and sick suffered the most from the cold and the lack of sunlight. They were placed at the rifts from explosions for sunbathing. Such places were called sanatoriums. The defense of the Adjimushkai quarries lasted 170 days from mid-May to mid-November. The underground garrison not only survived and defended, but actively fought the enemy. In May 1942, fierce battles were held to break through the encirclement and evacuate through the Kerch Strait. From August to November 1942, the garrison of the central quarry only maintained its defense, conducted reconnaissance and fired back. Small quarries garrison began a period of defense much earlier. There were no resources for attacks. After the fall of Sevastopol on July 4, 1942, the defenders of Adjimushkaya had no hope for forthcoming troops landing. They could only hope for themselves. On the same day, a sortie was made against the enemy, and a large amount of ammunition and weapons was captured. On the next day, on July 5th, the commander of the underground garrison, Colonel Pavel Yagunov, accidentally died, exploded while examining a German grenade captured the day before. He was the only one buried in a wooden coffin made of planks from the back of a truck. His grave was found by diggers only in 1987. Yagunov's body was reburied in the central park of the village of Adjimushkai, along with the remains of 30 unknown defenders of Adjimushkai. Lieutenant Colonel Grigory Burmin became the new commander of the central quarry. In the fall of 1942, the underground garrison had very little strength left. There was no hope of salvation. The liberation of Kerch took place only on April 11, 1944. Crimea was completely cleared of the Nazis on May 12, 1944. Presumably, the last battle of the WWII took place on October 30, 1942, as a result of which the quarries were completely captured by the Germans. The few survivors of the battle were taken prisoner by Germany. Only a few were able to survive. Bermin and Battalion Commissar Parachin were tortured in a concentration camp.